I used to drive all over town for low prices, but now I let Walmart's incredible new Savings Catcher do the work for me. I just enter my Walmart receipt online and Savings Catcher does the rest. It compares the prices I paid for items at Walmart with advertised prices from other top stores in my area. And if Savings Catcher finds a lower advertised price, Walmart gives me the difference on an e-gift card. Now that's my kind of work.
Introducing Savings Catcher from Walmart. Go to walmart.com/savingscatcher for details. Eligible items only. Restrictions apply.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the South Bay Show, Preparing for Disaster in America, on July 29th, 2014. I'm your host, Joe Terry, and the South Bay Show is brought to you by the Academy of Foreign Languages. If you have any interest in learning a new language or brushing up on existing language skills, you should know about the Academy of Foreign Languages. Located in Palos Verdes, the Academy of Foreign Languages specializes in the art of communication. Their mission is to provide the finest language instruction possible. They recognize that each student has distinctive needs and craft their teaching technique to optimize an individual's particular learning skills. At the Academy of Foreign Languages, they strive to create a comfortable environment conducive to learning. So whether you're learning a new language or would simply like to converse in your native tongue, the Academy of Foreign Languages can accommodate you. For more information, visit their website at www.academyofforeignlanguages. That's all spelled out, academyofforeignlanguages.com, or call 310-975-4133. You can find out more about us at facebook.com/The South Bay Show, or visit our website at thesouthbayshow.com. Preparing for disaster in America. This is a subject that can never be treated lightly, but we do our best to make it interesting, engaging, and yes, even entertaining to learn the few key skills and primary information that could save your life, your family's lives, that of a neighbor in a time of crisis, or the life of a treasured pet. Our mission is to engage hearts and minds and build knowledge and skills to help you prepare for whatever may come. This show is a true collaboration with solid roots in the community and a partnership with the official disaster preparation establishment. Our producer is founder and president of the local Manhattan Beach CERT Association and the Red Cross's community ambassador to Manhattan Beach, Mr. George Butts. Hey, George, how are you doing today?
Good morning, Joe. I'm wonderful. It's actually 7 o'clock in the morning and not 4 o'clock in the morning for me as it was last week when I was vacationing in Hawaii during the show. So
yes.
I got to sleep in.
Always go east, and then it's earlier.
Got to sleep. If I was east, I would be it would be 10 o'clock in the morning, and I would be on the same time zone as Michael, our guest.
Yes. It's, George, we talk a lot about, as we've often said, this is an all hazards approach show. We talk about different hazards, not just the primary hazards in our local community. We've talked to people all over the country, but this is something that we don't often talk about. It's the sort of the people problem, the human element of resiliency, and we're looking forward to this. Who's our guest today?
Our guest this morning is Michael Ballard. Michael specializes in building resiliency by helping groups and people of all ages learn to deal with change and adversity in the fast pace of modern life with its overwhelming situations and stresses through resiliency for life. Michael has delivered breakthrough solutions for organizations across North America and around the world, from the beaches of Bermuda to the skyscrapers of Singapore. He's dedicated his life to helping others prepare for or recover from life's challenges. Michael delivers actionable solutions that reflect the depth of his experience, applying a practical yet science-based approach to instill a courageous point of view. His goal is to help people get back up and dust themselves off after an upset, develop and deepened develop and deepen their resiliency and outperform their former selves. He knows what's possible. He's lived it despite his multiple battles with cancer and a near-death experience due to a fatal medical procedure. Michael still reaches sales success through placing 7th out of 78 professionals in a year when he was off work for 4 months. Michael knows exactly what it takes to be resilient. Taking what he learned, Michael built a solid foundation of training techniques and resources, recruiting a world-class team of elite, trusted practitioners, research experts, and seasoned strategists, and founded the RFL in 1987. Welcome to the program, Michael. We're so glad to have you join us this morning.
Honored to be here. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Michael. And we don't often talk about the human element of recovery. We talk about recovery in terms of the plant and facilities and physical and so forth, but resiliency for life, we're talking about the human element, right?
Absolutely. I have worked with clients where there's been catastrophic injury in the workplace. In one case, everybody was physically safe in the short term, and in the long term, I was brought in because of emotional issues. Somebody brought a handgun into the workplace.
Right.
So the results of that traumatization. I've worked with schools when there's been tragedies, and so we don't often plan for it. We don't even want to acknowledge it because who wants to think that terrible things can happen? Mm-hmm. But my youngest daughter was born on the day there was a tornado up here in Ontario, Canada, and 2 of my coworkers were driving home, and they just missed being struck by it by a matter of seconds. And having them tell me later how horrific it was, it showed me that we can never be underprepared. And so resiliency for life is a process of awareness and skills to help us get deeper and wider in our resiliency so that when adversity does strike, we're more equipped, more prepared to do the safest, fastest things as opposed to just run.
So one of the things I like to do, Michael, is off the top, I'd like to give the guests an opportunity to frame the discussion. What is resiliency?
Resiliency, at its basic definition, is our ability to bounce back, to be plastic, elastic, and get stretched out of shape and come back to it. I've rather taken that definition and changed it because dealing with the human being element, we all have things going on that are somewhat out of our control. Genetically, we have health issues. Well, we can still be more resilient and manage our health issues. We can manage our unemployment issues. We can manage doesn't mean we're going to have best happy endings, but we can have better quality experiences. And if we're being resilient, we'll generally attract people who are more willing to help as opposed to what I call the Eeyore complex that we can get stuck in if we're not careful with the sad sack, oh no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that some of us don't go into depression, and that's not to make light of that at all. Mm-hmm. But just be careful of getting caught in a cycle of sad sack and Eeyore. So resiliency can help us with our quality of experience and often with the quality of the outcome.
When we talk about disasters, often we talk about, these natural disasters, lots and lots of people are involved, or let's just focus on a community where it doesn't affect just one household but multiple households. There's the initial disaster and I'm thinking now of Boston, the first in the Boston suburbs, the first tornado they've never recorded a tornado in the Boston suburbs. I think they started keeping records in the 1850s, and this is the first tornado recorded. Many, many people were affected. Homes were destroyed, lots of physical damage and traumatization because, they've never had an earthquake or a tornado. So when you meet a situation like this, what are some of the key things that happen, and then what are some of the things that you would recommend for people to do?
Well, funny you should mention that. One of the first things when a community got affected by disaster was I used to work with a gentleman who lived near the train derailment in Mississauga, Ontario, back in the 1980s. So that was a large, horrific fire, and they had to evacuate hundreds of thousands of people. And so similar but different, and again with our Barrie, Ontario tornado near me. So what happens, of course, is that people go into survival mode, and fight and flight kicks in, which is normal. It's fight and flight for a reason. When there's a serious issue and we feel threatened, we fight, or we flight, we run. However, that doesn't serve us well after the crisis of the second, the moment, the hour, or the 3-day fire, once it's gone. And so we have to do things to get centered, focused, and calmer again. I got to be the non-governmental organizational coordinator, NGO coordinator, when refugees came to Canada from a war zone. And we had 800 people land, and they just all left a war zone where terrible things had happened. And I noticed the same thing with them that I did with my friends from with the rail derailment, was this sense of anxiety and stress and tension. And some call it hyper-awareness or hyper-vigilance.
Yes.
And it's getting them to unwind. And so that gets in the way of our sleep cycles. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've got little kids and nobody's getting any sleep, nobody's happy. It's really hard to parent a family of 6 if 3 of the kids and one of the parents aren't getting any sleep or any real deep sleep.
Right.
And if you have a refugee camp with 800 plus people in it and 700 of them or so are not getting any sleep, people start to get grouchy, and over the course of a few weeks, they get grouchier. And so what I put together for my program was to help individuals, families, or large groups understand their process. Because if we go to hypervigilance, it helps save us possibly in the moment. But it's coming back out of that and getting into flow and calmness is the whole point of being resilient. Because if you can't achieve that, you're going to have a problem moving forward.
So what I hear you saying is that perhaps after a disaster, after the fight or flight moment has passed, then now we go into recovery mode. And on a human level, recovery mode, especially when there's large-scale disaster, might be perhaps doing, I don't know, Tai Chi or doing something as a group that calms people, and then also making sure that it's lights out at 10, that everybody gets a good night's sleep.
Well, yeah, in broad strokes, yes. I think that before we even get to the exercises, we have to share with people that it's okay to not feel okay. So my team and I, we put this program together to get people to understand that it's okay not to be okay. And so we talk to them about 3 states we can go into when we felt very threatened for a short period or a long period of time, whether it's an earthquake, a fire, a tornado, one man-made or nature. So we talk about 3 states that we can go into when big stuff happens, and I call it big stuff because I don't want to use words that trigger people into more stress. So by using big stuff, I'm told it's safe with my experts. So the 3 states that we can go into when we're threatened or challenged is the first one's the frozen state. And I always say, you know what, couple days a year, you pull the blankets over your head, you don't want to get out of bed, welcome to being a normal human being, and that's an okay place to be. But 3 days in a row could be an employment issue. 3 days in a row could be make you a bad parent. And so then there's frozen, so we're feeling totally overwhelmed physically, emotionally, mentally, or all 3. Flicker stage is, well, I'm really trying to concentrate, but I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm walking in small, tight circles, but I'm getting some things done, but I'm not being very coherent, and I'm not certainly at my best. And then there's the what I call the frenzied state, where we're so hypervigilant, we're barely touching the ground when we walk around, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and we're not getting almost anything done. And I joke that would be me on 6 cups of coffee drank in a row.
Okay.
All right, and I thought I was a type A guy here.
Yeah, well, perhaps you are, but I always tease that I'm a type A, AAA plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you first, please.
By being the tour guide and allowing people to understand that there's these 3 states we can all visit when we've gone through big stuff, I emphasize it's okay to visit. it's a lousy place to live.
Right.
So there's skills and a process to get us back to normal. And the three healthy states that we can be in when we're going through big stuff or everyday life is there's floppy. I like alliteration, can you tell?
Yeah.
And floppy is the relaxation response. The Harvard Medical School, 1969, the research is pretty profound. It helps you rationally, emotionally, and physically slow down, calm down. It can help with sleep. It can help us feel more engaged with ourselves and with others, and it's a powerful skill set. Unfortunately, because the research was done by family doctors, medical doctors, mental health people don't even often know this skill set exists. So a silo in the system that's getting in the way. So the second state to be in that, now you're in California, so you should be all experts at this. It's flow, mindfulness, being in the moment without judgment. And so it sounds easy, but it is a skill set to practice. So in working with a client the other day, for our first meeting, I said, if I'm not in flow, I'd be paying attention to your earrings. Custom made? Yes, she said. I said, wow. But I said, I'm not looking you in the eye anymore. You're suddenly all about earrings. Oh. I said, nice scarf. Italian? French? Oh, it's French. I said, and it didn't come from the discount bin for $9.99. No, it's an extravagance. It's a piece of art that's a scarf.
Yeah.
So she didn't tell me the price, but I'm going to guess $400 or higher.
Yeah.
By analyzing all her stuff, nice stuff, I'm not talking to the person. So flow, mindfulness, some call it the witness level. I'm being in the moment, no judgment, going, and I'm receiving, and I'm sending, and I'm feeling deeply connected to myself, those around me. It's not a character flaw not to be here, but it's a very vital skill, especially during a crisis, because as one expert said, A, it's hard to manipulate somebody who's in flow and practicing mindfulness, and B, they're safer. They're going to make better decisions. And of course, I learned all this from my Shaolin Kung Fu master when I was a teenager. I was very fortunate to get that exposure for 3 years. And I was lousy at it physically, but emotionally and mentally, it really paid dividends for me. So when we're going through disaster, frozen, flickered, and frenzied are normal to visit, lousy to live in. So by practicing skills of relaxation and being floppy, being in flow, we can then also enjoy what I call fright and fun, also known as earlier in the show we discussed about fight and flight response. However, working with special needs kids, and I've only had a couple, so I don't claim this as an expertise, but I've worked with people who are just on the cusp of dementia or Alzheimer's, and we get them to practice being relaxed because their anxiety is going higher. They know the lights are on, but every now and again the lights flicker.
Right.
So we're trying to give them a skill set to cope where they're going through, walking across this bridge. So the fight and fun response with my special needs kids, if we call it fight and flight, and they didn't like you and they bopped you one in the nose, it'd be your fault for some of them. Because they're 20 years old working with a 5-year-old mindset. That's all they have. So we're trying to give them the gift of fight and fun. And so Dolby surround sound, 60-inch 4K TV screens didn't exist in 1918 when the fight and flight response was articulated scientifically. And so I've come up with a different name so that people of all ages and mentalities can benefit from knowing what it is and how to use it. And it's a very powerful skill set to stay safe.
Now, is this fright and fun?
I'm calling it fright and fun. So it still keeps us safe, but also if you sit down and watch a scary movie, when the music amps up and the lights flicker on the TV, that's getting our fight and flight response to kick in. And so we're getting even more engaged, and our adrenaline and body chemistry is changing, and that happens during a crisis or an emergency. But 3 days after the crisis and the emergency is stabilized, being in fright and fun is getting in the way of recovery. Okay. And so we call it fright and fun because it's also, fright and fun is about engaging in playful activity. It's about engaging in entertaining activity to help us feel connected to self and others again. So I'm a big Robin Williams fan, and I advocate, if he fits your belief systems, 2 Robin Williams live and from Las Vegas shows will bring you back to reality real quick.
Okay. So let's just do a station break here. We're talking with Michael Ballard. We're talking about resiliency for life, and you can call in and ask Michael a question, or if you have a comment, we'd love to have you. Please give us a call at 714-242-5288. That's 714-242-5288. We'd love to have your comment or question. And also, if you'd like to visit Michael's website, please visit michaelballard.ca. That's michaelballard.ca. michaelballard.ca. Michael is your resiliency tour guide. So, Michael, let's hear a little bit about Michael Ballard. We've talked about resiliency,
Sure.
and we're going to go back to that subject. But right now, I just want people to meet you. You've been through a lot. Give us a snapshot. Who is Michael Ballard?
Sure, thank you. Well, as a little kid at 6, I ended up having a concussion. I went over the handlebars of my bicycle, and as I like to tease kids nowadays when I see them without a helmet on, I'm so old, bicycle helmets weren't invented.
Yeah.
And so I got taken to a kid's hospital because I kept fading in and out of consciousness for the whole hour trip. It was a long time ago. There was not a lot of paved roads from my house to the major hospital that did kids' health. And the young man in the same room also had a concussion. And what intrigued me to no end at 6 was I had a world-class headache. I assumed that him having a concussion had a world-class headache. I wanted peace, quiet, lights off, complete silence, and 2 aspirins, because I'd heard that adults took aspirins for headaches. And they said, no, you can't. With this special headache you have, we have to look in your eyes once an hour, and we have to make sure that you're conscious. And if you fall asleep on us, we can't look in your eyes and see them when you're conscious. So it took 18 hours to get changed to a new room, but I left with a big wow factor that 2 people having a similar experience can react radically different. He screamed and shouted for 18 hours. I don't know how he had the stamina. I, within 18 hours, was transferred to another room for the day and a half after that I stayed in. But I went home completely changed because I was just amazed as a 6-year-old that people could be so different with the same circumstances. And fast forward, a doctor with good intentions when I was 17 said, hey, Ballard, Michael, you have a chronic illness. And in my house, you pay attention when you talk illness. And I said to the doc, really, what can I do about it? And the doctor then made what I think was a fatal mistake. He said, there's nothing you can do. And in my house, you're not allowed to say there's nothing you can do when I was that age, because at the very least you can pray on it, or maybe you don't believe in a higher power or God, that's okay too. In my house, you still seek out the wisdom of those that have gone before you with this issue to say, how do you cope? What did you do to thrive once you got over it, or how did you manage it? So that made me mad. I failed school that year. I don't know if it was depression, just giving up, frustration, but as one of my friends from school who was a girl as opposed to a girlfriend said, I might be the only man that understood bloating and bleeding.
Okay.
Because I had a bowel disease and I had fat pants and skinny pants. So that was not a lot of fun, but because of the Kung Fu, I started practicing more, breathing exercises, mindfulness, relaxation skills, exercise. Well, darned if it didn't go into remission after a couple of years. I went 3 years with almost no symptoms, which was a big help to go to college and be high function healthy.
Right.
And along the way, I got a good career position with an international firm, and suddenly at 27 was told that I had cancer. And a couple of days after surgery, the surgeon said, so the good news is we think we have it. The bad news is we think we know it spread to 4 locations, so you have 2 stage 3s and 2 stage 2s. And so I was pretty freaked out. So that's when I pulled out all the stops to practice everything I knew about resiliency at that point. Although back then I didn't call it resiliency, didn't know what it was called. I just called it life force. So I had music therapy to get me mobile, and I pulled in a team. I had a prayer team. My father had intranet access because he worked for that wonderful Kodak company. And he talked to his friends around the world on his technical support team, and suddenly I was being prayed for in mosques, synagogues, temples, church revival halls in the South. It was just an amazing experience. And then the cards and notes and letters started showing up, and it was very empowering. So one of the things for your listeners is, for the human being thing, is we have to have a circle of support. They don't have to be best friends. They have to be people that respect us and keep us safe. In my tenant advocacy work, I'm surprised by the people that don't have a phone number to call if their one and only relative is out of town. So safety means that we have connections. And so from there, heaven forbid, I had a 7-year journey through my health issues, most unpleasant, but it is what it is. And then from there, I was challenged with another cancer and then a failed surgery, and I had an emergency trip to OR. And that's when I found that practicing in advance makes a significant difference to be personally prepared for an emergency. I'd had some practice times with my Shaolin Kung Fu master, because he knew that I physically was not that good at it, but emotionally and rationally, I was pretty darn good at Kung Fu. I could have a 240-pound man charging at me, and I would just stand still waiting for the attack before I put up my defense and then my offense. And said, so you're physically not that good, but mentally, emotionally, this will last you a lifetime if you use it. So I'd practice crisis issues. And, so I got robbed by that motorcycle gang at 19. I used distraction. They left the staff I was in charge of alone, and I helped them steal $200 worth of headlights and tail bulbs from the company, but they left my young ladies and my other young gentlemen totally alone. So when I'm being rushed to OR, I was able to look at the surgeon and the anesthetist and the nurse from my ward saying, hey, this is still my birthday, so chin up, let's do this. So I still felt totally involved as opposed to being the victim.
Right.
Sounds crazy. I'm lying there on a slab thinking, I wonder if I'm going to get out of here alive in 6 hours. But instead of the pity party, I decided to say, okay, I'm scared out of my mind, but let's do this. Now,
it is comprehensive. I mean, your website, you really have quite a bit of information about the talks that you do and the Resiliency Life series and so forth. Is this? I mean, there are a lot of personal coaches. This is a popular area, but I don't know about resiliency coaches. Are there a lot of resiliency coaches?
I haven't found but a handful of people who do resiliency, and they're almost all academics. And so they're studying it. And I find that in a couple of cases they're studying it, but they're not. They're telling you the what, and they're not telling you the how. So there's one expert that shared how kids that were of a certain age, how they were resilient. And in talking to several other experts, I said, well, that's nice for 7-year-olds, but I'm working with foster parents who are dealing with 3-year-olds who have been chronically and acutely abused. And they said, oh, they're too young to help. Well, I don't know about you, but that anytime you tell me there's something's impossible, it raises a red flag. I might go away and think on it for a year. But we've been working with kids as young as 3 through storytelling. And the storytelling, in the stories, we have them practice key skills. The kids don't even know they're learning resiliency skills. So our approach is not academic. We've had it all reviewed by academics to make sure that we do no harm first. And we're having some really powerful success. So there are others out there, but for the most part, they're academics talking about what. And I want to focus on the how, because for argument's sake, if there's 1,000 things to be resilient and you don't know there's a choice to be resilient, what does it matter? But if I can let you know that you can be resilient, and here's the path of resiliency, and here's the first 25 things to do, now I've unleashed you. I've pointed you in the right direction, dusted you off, and given you a push.
Now, I have some experience with the resilient entrepreneur, because I've failed enough to have some experience with that. But let's talk about, when we come back from the break, let's talk about the resilient first responder. Because that really sort of dovetails into what we normally talk about, which is recovering from disasters and first responders, and how we all have to be our own first responders in many cases. So let's talk about that when we come back from the break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the South Bay Show, Preparing for Disaster in America. We're talking with Michael Ballard about resiliency for life, and we'll be right back talking with Michael in just a moment. Right now, though, we'd like to thank a sponsor, and it's never too early to begin planning your financial future. When it comes to protecting your assets and hard-earned dollars, you'll want experienced professionals with a proven track record and flawless reputation on your team. Briganti, Cameron, Waters & Strong, certified public accountants and consultants, is the largest full-service accounting firm in the South Bay, and they are dedicated to providing professional services of the highest quality. The partners are South Bay residents, deeply committed to serving the communities where they live, work, and play. They support a variety of local nonprofit organizations such as Skate Park PV, Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy, the Torrance South Bay YMCA, Rotary, and Pediatric Therapy Network, among others. BCWS prides itself on providing national accounting technical expertise with the personal attention of a local company. This commitment to uphold high standards of excellence has proven key to their success and first-rate reputation. Their ultimate goal and reward is to see their clients achieve financial success as they define it, whether that means helping them to reduce their tax burden, assisting them with planning to ensure their financial security, succession planning, exit strategies, and wealth transfer. The partners and professionals of BCWS are committed to providing their clients with the expertise and guidance they need to reach their financial goals. For more information, visit the website at www.bcws.com. That's bcws.com. Or call 310-545-0011. That's 310-545-0011. Briganti, Cameron, Waters & Strong, navigating your way to financial success. So that's what we want to talk about, Michael. Success, but in particular, though, the resilient first responder. Can you talk a little bit about that workshop that you do?
Oh, yes. Well, that's when it's near and dear to my heart, as I have lived beside first responders as well as... Hello?
Yes. Hi.
Okay,
yes.
There we go. My screen flashed once, and I wondered what was going on.
Oh, no.
So I've lived beside first responders, as well as I've lived beside, I'm not sure the proper name, but let's just say I have lived beside those that work with first responders online, so 911 operators, and I've also lived beside emergency nurses and acute care, or not acute care, but emergency nurses, and I've lost the names. Anyways, and so I've got to have some big talks, and I remember seeing one of my first responders come home from a midnight shift, and I was home having a paperwork day when I used to be in sales and marketing, and at 8 in the morning I was out in the backyard at the picnic table with my early iPod. It was actually a pad and paper. And I was making my big to-do list out of my head. Then I was going to go to my office and make sure I had everything done, and then I was going to do running around. And they hit the backyard with a six-pack, and they had two popped open, and they hadn't even started to drink yet. It was like, whoa. So I stuck my head over and said, just checking in. How are you? Bloody terrible was the polite language, to paraphrase. I had the shift from hell last night. Oh. Want to share? Nope, I'm not going to share that crap with anybody. Okay, now I know a debrief is really important when we go through big things. I'm not a trained professional, but I was just trying to be a respectful neighbor, because it's what neighbors, to me, should be doing, taking on what we can at our own level of ability. And from there, we started to talk over the next few months. And I was still at this point only in my late 20s. I'd got through my one bout of cancer and my chronic illness and my concussion, so I knew I was pretty tough. But this is when I started to realize how much adversity, how much they saw humanity at their worst or most vulnerable as a first responder. And so I was lucky. My neighbor had the courage to share. No names. They always stayed professional. They then started inviting me over to meet other first responders, saying things like, "This Ballard guy's not normal. He might be part of the public, but he's not normal public," which I took as a compliment. Mm-hmm. And so from there, we started talking about what have you been trained or taught about how to cope with this, what I call, again, big stuff. And their comment was, "Well, what do you mean? You make it or you don't?" And I went, no. Now, this is the 80s, and I'm saying there's research from the 60s, and there's anecdotal from 2,000 to 5,000 years about how to cope to deepen and widen your ability to thrive despite the stuff you go through. Oh, he says. So I got him, and then I got her, because he was married to a first responder as well, and we started talking about it. And by the time I gave them my 3-minute overview, they were both a little miffed that nothing in their training had prepared them. It was just like, if you don't make it, you don't make it. Too bad. Suck it up, Buttercup. Mm-hmm. And that really opened my eyes that first responders, police, fire, ambulance, SWAT teams, you name it, 911 operators, anybody that supports them, and the secondary, the people in the emerge wards at the hospital, at the trauma wards, need this training. So I phoned 19 institutions of higher learning in what we call a province and you call a state, and I talked to deans of medicine, deans of nursing, deans that taught EMS workers, their staff taught EMS workers. I talked to the deans that did, I've gone blank. They teach people to run funeral homes. Okay. You know who I mean. Funeral directors. Thank you. That's the word. First word begins with. And in only one school, now this was 1989 by now, only one school out of 19 in nursing, medicine, EMS, police, did they teach more than one course on how to. They all taught one course on grief, death and dying. Great place to start. But not one of them had a course on self, and what back in the 80s some called stress management, some were starting to call it stress hardiness. There was an Illinois Bell study on stress hardiness that I liked because it used great language. I could get people to talk to me that wouldn't talk, because stress hardiness was about getting tougher. So I could get, I hate to say it, the men out there especially to talk about their stress hardiness. Mm-hmm. I'd had roomfuls of men who were in my workshops there because they were on probation due to inappropriate workplace behavior, and they would still get up and leave an hour into the course. I don't need this shit. Well, if you're not using this shit, you need it. And it's not shit. Mm-hmm. High-level skills, or call it operational software, to keep us safer, more productive, healthier, and less vulnerable, because we now know the effects of trauma are cumulative. And so being a resilient first responder is part of being a professional. Not being as resilient as we'd like because we have an issue or we have a cumulative issue is not a weakness. The best racing tire can break down and blow out in a race. The best of us can have a day, a week, an issue. But if we don't acknowledge it, what we repress can make us regress. That's the only quote I know is mine. So helping people get through this by being more resilient. So I take a very basic approach with the first responders that I've been working with, and we talk about with every incident, there's a known or unknown choice to get bitter or better. And being tenacious and tough does not mean being weak. It means being tenacious and resilient. And by being tenacious and resilient, that means there's times we might cry. There's times we might be angry. But how we choose to funnel the sadness or the anger, that's one of the keys to being resilient. And so for first responders, how have you chosen to define yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lean, keen, resilient kind of guy. It's corny, but it works for me. But I am not tough 100% of the time.
So, Michael, would you agree with the analogy that you don't want to be strong like an oak, because when the oak meets a tornado strong enough, it'll break. You want to be strong like the willow. Yep.
Pruning happens, limbs fall off, but the willow tree is still there when it's done going, That's it? Whew! That was a close one.
The willow bends. And
absolutely. And so, to use my body image as one of the issues is when you've had as many surgeries as me, I'll never be a guest on a volunteer firefighter fundraising calendar with this body of mine. I make the scratch and dent bin. I'll never be in the regular bin. And that's okay with me because I look upon those scars as, hey, me and Zorro had it out 5 times. He's almost won 5 times, but I'm still standing, not dead yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a sense of humor. Some call it black humor. I had to have a lot of surgery at one point, so I would tell your listeners, here's some TMI, too much information. I'm the only man willing to admit that I know that he's a gutless wonder. I've had so many guts cut out, I still wonder.
Okay.
So I don't frame myself as strong or smart or handsome. I frame myself as a tenacious survivor who's still here, pleased to be still here, and I wonder what's next. And I see a therapist once a month just to make sure things are going well, because on occasion one of my clients has meltdowns. I want to go to a certified expert to make sure I'm okay, and I get them to deal with their EAP and build a strong family and coworker support team to have successful outcomes. Because I am only a bridge. I am not the cure.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have these bridges in our lives.
Wow. That's powerful, and it's hard, Michael, for people that are right in the middle of the challenge, whatever challenge it is.
It is.
To see how they can go forward. What kinds of advice can you give to people that are right in the middle of the challenge now? Where can they go? I know they could visit your website, michaelballard.ca, but what can you offer them as the next step if they're right in the middle of the challenge right now?
Well, if they have the courage to know they're in the middle of the challenge now and they're not feeling as resilient as they should be, or if they feel their life, their career, or both, or their relationship is going in the wrong direction, especially to our first responders, our emergency workers, know that your work has pushed you, pulled you, kicked you. And it's tough because we don't always get 100% of the training we deserve, and we're learning more every day. So know that it's not a weakness to ask for help. Know that it's not a weakness to be stuck in the mire. I joke that during the harshest times, I was up to my ankles in crap, mentally stuck, and that was head first. And when you're up to your ankles head first in the swamp, forget about draining it. You're trying to figure out what swamp you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the shore? So I would say to them that call your EAP, call somebody you respect and trust that's going to help you feel grounded.
EAP?
Employee Assistance Program, sorry. If you don't have an EAP program, do you have a family physician that you trust and respect? Do you have a coworker that you trust and respect? Do you have a favorite place that feels safe? If you go to my YouTube channel, Michael H. Ballard, if you go to YouTube and type in Michael H. Ballard, you'll find some interviews. There's some media interviews where I talk about being more resilient. So for me, being more resilient is, do you have a friend you can talk to decompress? I have driven some people to therapists and waited in the waiting room while they went in to talk. I've offered to go in while they talked. I said, I can even put on headphones where I can't hear you talking, but I'm right there beside you. But you need to get started. So I call it getting the toe in the door. What do you need to do to get the toe in the door to get you started on the healing that you so richly deserve? Because in a career choice where we share with others and give ourselves and risk for others, we deserve to have it as well. So it starts with ourselves asking for help. And it's not a sign of weakness to cry. It's actually, to me, a sign of courage to cry. Let it out.
Right. Let it out.
We got to share it. We've got to share it. I've had people email me, and I gladly talked them through some ideas and said, now go and make it happen for yourself.
Right.
I met somebody who was going to the gym for 9 hours a day dealing with their stress. At 30, they had the joints. When they finally got healthy and they talked to me again, they had the joints, they said, of an 85-year-old. They'd been going to the gym for 2 years, 9 hours a day, off shift, just trying to survive. They were so traumatized. And like I said, while their drug of choice was exercise, what had they missed in that period? Broken up with a spouse, missed a promotion at work, and not had the joy they richly deserved. So easy for me to say at this end, but having been through this a few times myself, ask for help, let it out.
Right. Wow, this is great. Michael, hold on a moment. We'll
Certainly.
be right back with Michael Ballard, ladies and gentlemen. This is the South Bay Show. You're listening to Preparing for Disaster in America. We're going to be right back with Michael Ballard, resiliency coach et al., and we're going to talk about resiliency and get some contact information from him. But at this point, we'd like to talk with George about what's coming up. George?
Yes, I'm just sitting here trying to take this all in because I'm learning so much. I love my job.
Yeah.
I find a guest and you do the research, and then I get to learn. And I've sat here with my mouth dropped open, and I'm writing notes. I usually don't write notes. I can think about when we talk about disaster psychology and putting a little bit of this in a mindset of somebody that's doing the talking and trying to teach that also. What's going on? We are without a guest yet for next week, but that's not to say that it's not going to happen, because it certainly happened this week. But what we do have coming up this week, I want to note, is here in Manhattan Beach over the next 2 days. Tomorrow and Thursday is the infamous six-man volleyball, and I want to be able to say that our emergency medical responders from our CERT organization will be working hand in hand with Manhattan Beach Fire Department paramedics for the 2 days, doing first aid and roaming the beaches of Manhattan Beach to make sure that the residents and the visitors are all safe. On 8/12, in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, we're going to be speaking with Warren Lee, who is the director of the New Hanover County Emergency Management and 911 Communications. New Hanover County is Wilmington, North Carolina. They are right in the middle of some of the worst hurricanes ever, and we will be chatting with Warren about how they prepare, how they recover and react to hurricanes and disasters that they have there on the East Coast. Other than that, at this moment right now, I'm happy to say, or not, that there is not much else coming on right now for the next month or so. We've got some training that we're working on, but we are rebuilding our board of directors after last month's elections and annual meeting this next Monday night, and who knows who's going to be the new president.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. That's what's going on. Good. Michael, we are here in the South Bay of Los Angeles, on the west coast of America. We're experiencing some strange weather these days with a lightning strike that actually resulted in a fatality just yesterday. It was
oh dear.
It was amazing, shocking. It's very unusual for us. And then there's strange weather on the East Coast with tornadoes in Boston. It's just things are so topsy-turvy. There's the strife and struggles in the Middle East. There's always lots and lots of stress out there. What can you say to people to give them a handle to deal with these things?
It's good to be informed. However, at the extreme level, I've had a couple of coaching clients who were over-informed, and that caused them to go into what I would say was hypervigilance. So one of my neighbors had 3 TVs on in a 2-bedroom condo. So BBC in the kitchen because they have a great perspective. Right. CNN in the living room because I worry about my American friends and I need that perspective. And then we are in Canada, so up here, so she had CBC News on in her bedroom, which was loud enough to hear in the whole place. So there was the first time we had a session, I was being bombarded. So I asked respectfully if she could turn them off, and she was like, "Oh, but why? I need to hear it." I said, "They're on a 20-minute loop at best. You don't need to hear the same thing 3 times an hour from 3 sources." Oh. So it was really interesting to me that through trying to be informed, she was being over-informed. And after 3 sessions, I was asking her to go to see her family doctor to deal with anxiety issues. Because, again, I'm not a medical professional. I see myself as a bridge and a compass, and I'm a tour guide. I get people into the land of resiliency. Here's some skills. Here's the process. Here's some common language, which we didn't discuss earlier. Because if we use the right language that feels safe and easy to use, we're more likely to accept that we have stuff going on we should deal with. And I got her to realize that her bitter and better meter was stuck on the bitter side and that she was living in fear and anxiety over everything. Well, I can't help the people in the Philippines after the tsunami if I'm so stuck in fear I can't even leave the house to go to the bank to send the Red Cross a $20 check. And that is an extreme example, but that's what she was doing. So I would say that the biggest thing we can do for ourselves is practice things that make us calm, to be mindful. So practice our mindfulness, practice our relaxation skills, exercise. I have 70-plus medical clips in me from my 4th and 5th surgeries. So I'm not a big advocate of long-distance running. I ache when I walk and run, so I swim. But we can all, in some way, shape, or form, regardless of our mobility, we can be in tone. And one of my clients at 400 pounds, should have been 200 to 300 in my humble opinion, said, "But I'm obese." I said, "You could have the most fit arms on the planet. There's nothing wrong with your arms. You might have a bad knee, but your arms can still be physically fit so you can push that wheelchair like a supercharged turbo machine." So no excuses. We have to be as physically fit as we're capable. We have to practice the skills to keep us calm. We have to have a support team, and we have to practice disidentification. Do I have the issue, or does the issue own me? I know there's things in the Middle East. I know there's things in the Ukraine. I know there's things in South America, in my own country, all over the world, but I can't change them all. So I'm going to be the best darn neighbor I can and take care of me. Talk to my neighbors about safety and resiliency, and I'm going to pick 1 or 2 things to focus on. I can't help all the African causes that write me, that want me to come and work in their countries for free. I need to earn a living. I do some volunteer work, and I have to focus on some things. If I focus on everything, it's impossible, and I'm going to crash and burn.
Right. Wow, that's great. We are all at the same stage, aren't we, Michael?
I think so. So resiliency is in part a choice. Some of us are blessed to be born with a parent or two parents or a community or a belief system that helps us get a big start, but I believe we can all catch up. Mm-hmm. I've seen people make amazing transformations in their 80s. Mm-hmm. I was hired to work at a nursing home by the Director of Education and the VP of Nursing, and virtually everybody in the room had lived through the Second World War, and some of them had been in the concentration camps, and I was saying to them, but you want me to talk to them about resiliency? Mm-hmm. I mean, they lived through things that are unimaginable. And mm-hmm. they said, but Michael, with age, they've forgotten. They're confusing resiliency with physicality only. I want you to remind them that as you constantly do that, resiliency is a rational, emotional, and physical process. And some would say spiritual process, which I also believe in. But it's a unified force. If you only do it in one area, you'll never be as resilient as you deserve. Mm-hmm. And so I had a great experience. And my claim to fame is that I'm the only speaker that nursing home chain had where only one resident fell asleep mm-hmm. during the presentations.
Okay.
In a room full of 88 to 101-year-olds.
Yeah. Okay. We are nearing the end of our program, Michael, and it's been a great time. I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to give your contact information so that people can get in touch with you and further the conversation on resiliency. Perhaps they have a group they'd like you to talk with or something like that. So please, what's your contact information?
Oh, thank you. Please. Well, people can get a hold of me with email. I'm Michael at michaelhballard.com, MichaelHballard.com. Mm-hmm. Or if they want to pick up the phone, 416-229-4655. And in this day and age of social media, they can find me on Twitter at Resilient Michael, but no L. And for some reason, I have a lot of groups contact me on Twitter. So Resilient, RESILIENT, and Michael, MICHAE, no L. Twitter wouldn't allow me all the numbers and spaces I wanted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'd leave your listeners with the fact that resiliency is in part a choice, but it's a set of values, it's a process, and it's a set of skills. Mm-hmm. And we can all learn some.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. Any final thoughts, George?
I've been taking this all in between last week and this week, being able to talk about resilient communities mm-hmm. and now just resilient people. Mm-hmm. And we all know we have all had our ups and downs. We all, I'm sure, know people that have been in the boat that may be sinking. And today's conversation, I think, has helped me myself know that I ought to be able to help pull some of these people up, and know that instead of fright and flight, I'm looking at fright and fun for some people, and to flow, look the people in the eye. So that's what I've taken out of this. I'm not sure. I've learned something from each hour that we offer up here to our guests and our listeners, and I've come out of this a better person, both knowledge and within myself.
Right. I believe we have the tools now, and now we just need to communicate this to other people and remember it ourselves.
Yeah, got to use it.
Got to use it. Use it or lose it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michael Ballard, for joining us today.
My honor, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks for spreading the word.
Thank you, George.
It is always a pleasure.
All right, that's our show today, ladies and gentlemen. We'd love having you. We hope that you'll join us for our show on Thursday. the South Bay Spotlight, and then, of course, on Friday, Manhattan Beach Chamber 360. We'll see you then. Bye-bye now.